Introduction: The Silence of the Soul. There is a silence in our generation that no playlist can fill. It is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of the soul vanishing. It hides beneath the noise of updates, the glow of screens, the pressure to perform, the addiction to escape, a silence that rots slowly, while everything looks busy on the outside. We are living in an age of exquisite external stimulation and internal starvation. Everywhere you turn, people are burning out by 30, depressed by 20, disillusioned by 16. We have all the words in the world at our fingertips, and yet somehow no language to make sense of ourselves. Loneliness is now a public epidemic. Purpose is a lost relic. And hope feels like a forgotten myth whispered by the dying. We were promised so much. Technology would liberate us. Education would empower us. Therapy would fix us. Faith would save us. But something has gone missing in the machinery. Something fundamental. Something human. Therapy teaches us how to cope, but not why to live. Faith, for many, has become shallow rituals or empty scandals. And meaning, the kind that steadies a life and binds it with purpose, has become the rarest resource on earth. We chase pleasure, but feel hollow. We build brands instead of identities. We express more, but understand less. We speak constantly, yet say nothing that touches the soul. This is not a passing phase. This is a civilizational moment, a crisis of being. And you feel it, you who are weary, you who lie awake at night, wondering what it's all for, you who walk through your day like a ghost, smiling through your own slow disappearance. This book is for you, not as a cure, but as a summons, a call back to thought, not as cold theory, but as soul fire. A return to philosophy, not the academic kind trapped in footnotes, but the old kind. The kind that once walked the streets of Athens, sat under trees in India, wandered the deserts with prophets and mystics. The kind that wasn't about cleverness, but survival. The kind that asked, what is a good life? Why suffer? What is the soul? Is there a purpose to pain? This kind of thought, soul thought, is not luxury. It is not intellectual indulgence. It is medicine. And right now, our generation is sick. We are not sick because we are weak. We are sick because we were never given the tools to face a world this broken, this fast, this loud. The systems gave us training, not wisdom, degrees, not direction, data, not depth. We were told how to make money, but not meaning, how to sell ourselves, but not how to know ourselves. So we wander, beautiful, aching, intelligent souls, drifting in a sea of contradictions with no anchor. But you are not alone, and you are not lost. The map still exists, it's just been buried under 1,000 distractions. This book is a digging tool. Each chapter is a searchlight. And the destination is not some external utopia, but your inner clarity, your rootedness, your return to something ancient, essential, and unkillable. If you've ever said, there must be more than this, you're right, there is, and it begins by thinking again, not just with the mind, but with the soul. Welcome. Let us begin the slow, brave, luminous work of becoming fully alive in a hollowing age. Chapter 1. The noise that numbs why distraction is the new despair. and silence is now rebellion. There was a time when silence was ordinary. A walk in the park, a moment at the dinner table, the pause between thoughts. Now it terrifies us. We reach for noise, the way a drowning man reaches for anything that floats, scrolling, streaming, swiping, binging, refreshing, tapping, always tapping. But what are we really running from? Not boredom, ourselves. We live in an era of weaponized distraction. Every app, every platform, every algorithm is calibrated to hijack your mind. Not for knowledge, not for wisdom, but for attention. And attention in this economy is gold. They don't just want your money. They want your eyes, your time, your focus. Because once they have those, your soul follows quietly behind. But the cost is staggering. We don't live in our own minds anymore. We outsource thinking to influencers, outsource meaning to trends, outsource feeling to memes. We're always entertained but rarely enriched, always stimulated, never satisfied. It is easy to mistake motion for meaning, but you can spin in a cage forever and still go nowhere. We scroll past genocide and wedding proposals in the same feed. We watch trauma and comedy in the same minute. We cry to strangers on TikTok and call it healing. Something inside is breaking, and we don't even have the language to name it. This is not just distraction, it is soul erosion. We were not made for this pace, this saturation, this synthetic intimacy. There is no time to sit with pain or wonder or mystery. Every silence is filled, every pause is punished, every deep thought is crushed by the next notification. And so we float, untouched, unresolved, unknown, but the ache remains. Beneath the blue light, beneath the emojis, beneath the smiling selfies, there is ache. That ache is the soul trying to speak. But in this world, the soul has to shout just to be heard. What does that leave us with? Burnout at 23, social exhaustion at 25, midlife crises by 30, suicidal ideation by 17. These are not private issues. They are symptoms of a culture that has forgotten how to be still. And here's the quiet truth. Silence is not the enemy. It's the doorway. In silence, we meet the self again. In silence, questions rise. Who am I? What do I value? What matters, really, deeply? These are not distractions. These are the foundations of being. But we are afraid of silence because we fear what we might find. Regret, pain, emptiness, confusion. But that's where the real work begins. The work of rebuilding a self from fragments. The work of remembering how to be human in a mechanical age. Philosophy begins here, not in libraries, but in stillness. It begins when we stop running, when we sit bravely in the discomfort of our own mind, when we choose to feel, not flee, when we say, enough noise, I want clarity. That clarity won't come from trends. It won't come from apps. It won't come from performance. It comes when we close the tab, silence the phone, and listen, not to the world, but to the voice beneath it all. The voice we buried, the voice that says, you are still here, you are still here. And you don't have to numb your way through life. You can think, you can feel, you can wake up, and that, today, is an act of rebellion. Chapter 2. A Crisis of Meaning. why so many feel lost, and why they are not crazy for feeling that way. We were raised to believe the world had a script: study hard, get a degree, find a job, climb the ladder, find love, build a life, be happy. But what if the script was a lie? What if the ladder leads nowhere? What if the job drains you? What if love is elusive or shallow? What if happiness is always postponed? What if beneath all the effort and expectation there's a gnawing hollowness that says, "This isn't it. Something's missing. This is the quiet epidemic of our time. Not illness, not violence, not poverty, though all are real. It is meaninglessness. A haunting absence of why. We are not starving for content. We are starving for context. Modern life has stripped us of the stories that used to hold us together. Religion, family, ritual, place, purpose. Now, everything is customizable. You can invent your identity, curate your persona, reinvent your values every week, and yet we are adrift. We have more freedom than ever, and less direction, more expression, but less depth, more tolerance, but less truth. Meaning is not just about having a goal or a passion. It's about knowing your life fits inside something larger, that your existence matters, that you are needed in the great unfolding of reality. But if life is just random particles, market forces, and personal branding, what's left? This is what thinkers like Camus called the absurd, a human being built to search for meaning, stranded in a world that offers none. And when people can't find meaning, they don't just get bored, they break. They fall into nihilism, or numbness, or rage. That's why addiction is everywhere, not just to substances, but to work, to sex, to validation, to screens. These are not always moral failings. Often they are coping mechanisms for a deep spiritual ache we haven't dared name. And when people do name it, when they say, "I don't know why I'm alive," we rush to medicate, pathologize, or distract them. But what if their question is true? What if a generation is asking for meaning and no one is answering? This isn't a personal crisis. It's a cultural one. Philosophy has been here before. When Socrates walked Athens, his city was crumbling. Politically, spiritually, morally. When Kierkegaard wrote in Denmark, Europe had lost its faith and replaced it with shallow modernity. When Nietzsche declared God is dead, he wasn't cheering. He was warning. He knew if we lose meaning, we lose man. The question is, where do we go now? We can't go back. We can't fake belief. We can't pretend old systems will automatically return. But we can go inward, to think again, to search, to construct meaning with full honesty. This doesn't mean making something up. It means wrestling, soulfully, fiercely, with the question, what matters, not what sells, not what's safe. What matters? This is the journey of existential philosophy. Not abstract puzzles, but urgent questions. Can I live with integrity in a collapsing world? Can I face death without flinching? Can I suffer and still love? Can I act without certainty? These are not academic games. They are survival questions, and they begin the moment we stop lying to ourselves and admit, I don't know what this life is for, but I want to find out. And that, in itself, is meaning. The seeker is already ahead of the cynic. The one who doubts but still searches is alive, more alive than the ones who gave up and called it wisdom. So if you're confused, lost, aching, good. It means you haven't gone numb yet. It means your soul is still reaching. And this book is for you. Let us go on, not with answers, but with courage. Because the only way out of meaninglessness is through the fire of thought. Chapter 3. What They Never Taught You in School. How modern. Education kills the soul, and what you must reclaim for yourself. They taught you how to take tests. They taught you how to follow instructions. They taught you how to memorize, comply, submit, and achieve. But they never taught you how to live, and how to suffer with dignity, not how to love with depth, not how to question the world you were born into, not how to build a self that could survive chaos. You went to school for 12 or 16 or 20 years. You passed exams. Maybe you got the degrees. But no one handed you a map for meaning. No one taught you what to do when your heart breaks, or when the world crumbles, or when you wake up one day and realize, I have everything they told me to get, and I still feel lost. Why? Because you were not educated. You were trained. You were trained to function in a system, not to flourish as a human being. You were trained to serve a machine, not to master a soul. Real education, soul education, asks the hard questions. It doesn't just prepare you for a career. It prepares you for existence. You were supposed to learn what Plato called the art of turning the soul, but they never turned you toward anything higher. They turned you toward productivity, performance, and profit. And when you collapsed under the pressure, they gave you a label: anxious, depressed, underperforming. No one asked if the system itself was sick. No one asked if the emptiness you feel is not a personal flaw, but a rational response to a hollow society. The philosopher Ivan Illich once said, "School is the advertising agency which makes you believe that you need the society as it is." In other words, school is indoctrination dressed up as opportunity. This is not conspiracy, it's design. Education in the industrial age was never built to liberate the mind. It was built to create obedient workers. Sit still, follow rules, regurgitate information, don't question authority, compete with your peers, serve the system. That model has changed little, even in the digital age. It now wears slicker branding and smarter tech, but it still leaves the soul untouched. Meanwhile, the ancient goals of education, wisdom, character, self-knowledge, are dismissed as soft or irrelevant. As if knowing how to navigate despair is less important than knowing Excel. But the great thinkers knew better. Socrates believed education was a form of midwifery, not pouring knowledge into a student, but drawing truth out of them. The Stoics saw learning as soul training, not for a job, but for life. Nietzsche warned that schooling without purpose produced only obedient slaves. And here we are, a generation of brilliant, sensitive, creative minds, burned out before they even begin. Not because they failed school, but because school failed them. So what now? We must take back education, not with bitterness, but with fire. We must rebuild the inner school, the school of doubt, the school of silence, the school of suffering, the school of meaning. Read not for grades, but for insight. Write not for approval, but for understanding. Learn not to escape life, but to face it. head on, heart open, soul awake, because no system will give you this. You must fight for it yourself. You must become your own philosopher. And that begins with unlearning what they told you mattered, and relearning what makes you human. Chapter 4. Thought that touches the wound philosophy, not as escape, but as a mirror, a balm, and a battlefield. There are two kinds of thought in this world. The first is thought that floats, disconnected, clever, sterile. It analyzes life from a safe distance. It builds castles of theory while the people bleed in the streets. You find it in polished journals, at expensive conferences, on the lips of men who've never wept in a room alone. It is performance, is pretense. It is thought that fears the wound. The second kind of thought is different. It bleeds. It stumbles. It kneels beside suffering and asks, "What does this mean?" It does not explain pain away. It enters it, lives with it, and dares to find form in the formless. This is the kind of thought that heals. And this is the kind of thought you've been craving all along. You don't need someone to solve you. You need someone to sit with you in the ache and hand you a candle. When Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations, he was not trying to impress his peers. He was a Roman emperor trying to keep his soul intact in a world of plagues, betrayal, and war. He wrote to himself at night in the dark, a man with absolute power, whispering to the heavens, "Be good, stay sane, remember death, show mercy." When Epictetus spoke of freedom, he did so as a former slave. He had no illusions. He knew that life could cage your body, chain your future, and break your dignity. But he also knew no one can own your mind unless you give it to them. When Simone Weil wrote about affliction, she wasn't writing as an outsider. She had buried brothers, starved herself in solidarity, and offered her own life to those suffering in war. She didn't romanticize pain, but she knew that if you stare it in the face without flinching, it might just open a doorway to God. This is philosophy when it's real, not debate club, not posturing, not academic fencing, but truth, hammered out in the heat of human struggle, the kind of philosophy that walks into hospitals, into courtrooms, into war zones, into bedrooms where someone is wondering whether they can keep living. And it says, "I see you. Let's begin again." Too often we think of thought as cold, detached, cynical. But true thought is warm. It is bloodied. It is born from the same place as art and prayer and revolution. Because there is a kind of pain so deep that it defies therapy, bypasses religion, and overwhelms intellect. Only thought that has touched the wound and refused to look away can speak to it. You are not broken because you feel too much. You are not weak because you ask why at 3 a.m. You are not strange because the world doesn't make sense to you. You are awake, and if that awakening feels like agony, good. That means the numbness didn't win. That means your soul still wants something deeper. This chapter is not an answer. It is an invitation to think in a new way, to pick up the fragments of your experience and hold them in the light, to begin seeing your suffering not as a defect, but as a source. You do not need shallow positivity. You need meaning. You do not need to get over it. You need to go through it, armed with language, courage, and clarity. So take up the Ancient tools, write, question, reflect. Let your pain become your philosopher. Let your silence become your teacher. Let your wound become the opening through which the light gets in. Chapter 5. The Myth of Progress. Why faster, richer and smarter hasn't made us better, and what truly moves the human soul forward. We live in the most advanced era in history. We have machines that talk, cars that drive themselves, pills that numb pain, and satellites that map the stars. We can order a meal in 60 seconds, talk to someone across the globe instantly, and access the entire library of human knowledge in our pockets. We've made astonishing progress, and yet something isn't right. People are more anxious than ever, more medicated than ever, more distracted, disoriented, addicted, and empty than ever. So what happened? We mistook technological progress for human progress. We upgraded our tools, but not our souls. We made the world faster, but we made ourselves hollow. Somewhere along the way, we believed the lie that if we just made life more convenient, comfort would lead to contentment. That if we removed suffering, we would feel joy. That if we had more choices, we would feel more free. But comfort is not the same as meaning. Choice is not the same as purpose. Efficiency is not the same as depth. You can scroll through 1,000 beautiful lives on Instagram and still hate your own. You can have 10 food delivery apps and still eat alone every night. You can post daily affirmations and still cry in the dark with no one to call. We thought progress would save us. Instead, it numbed us. We solved problems of distance and disease and created problems of despair and disconnection. We built faster ways to talk, but forgot how to listen. We learned to multitask, but forgot how to be present. We created wealth, but killed wonder. This is the myth of progress, the belief that history moves in a straight line, always upward, always forward, always better. But civilizations don't always rise. Sometimes they collapse. Souls don't always grow. Sometimes they shrink, even in comfort. And technology, when worshipped, becomes a god with no heart. Don't misunderstand this. This chapter is not anti-progress. It is anti-illusion. The illusion that more data equals more wisdom. That better gadgets mean better lives. That success and healing are the same thing. True progress is inner. True growth is moral. True advancement is spiritual. Did we become kinder? Did we learn to love better? Did we cultivate depth, reverence, resilience? Those are the real metrics. And right now, we are failing. We are not better than our ancestors because we live longer. We are not wiser than the ancients because we code. We are not more evolved because we can fly. They knew things we have forgotten. They practiced silence. They built meaning into ritual. They valued slowness, attention, and awe. You don't need to reject modern life to reclaim soul life. But you must resist the myth. You must remember that the deepest human longings, truth, beauty, love, purpose, do not evolve with the latest update. They are ancient, and they must be met in ancient ways. So, step off the treadmill. Get out of the noise. Sit with the silence. Read slowly. Love deeply. Pray without performance. Think without fear. Because maybe real progress isn't forward. Maybe it's inward. Chapter 6. The Soul Beneath the Pain. Why your suffering is not meaningless, and how it can become your teacher. We are told pain is a problem, something to fix, something to silence, something to numb, bypass, explain away, or medicate. But what if pain is not the enemy? What if pain is a signal? A signal that something sacred is calling out from deep inside. A voice beneath the surface saying, "You were not made for this chaos. You were not made for this numbness. You were made to feel, to wrestle, to seek." Pain, for many in this generation, is not just physical or emotional. It's existential. It's the pain of waking up each morning and not knowing why. It's the ache of feeling disconnected from others, from yourself, from life itself. It's the quiet scream. Is this all there is? Too often, that scream is dismissed as weakness, diagnosed as dysfunction. But what if it's the soul crying out for meaning? Plato taught that the soul suffers when it is cut off from truth. Kierkegaard said despair is not simply sadness. It's the sickness of a self that does not want to be itself. Viktor Frankl, after surviving the death camps of the Holocaust, declared, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." The deeper thinkers didn't see suffering as accidental. They saw it as a gateway to depth, to self-confrontation, to clarity. Not all suffering is noble, but all suffering has something to say, if we are willing to listen. Instead, our culture teaches us to avoid pain at all costs. We binge, we scroll, we medicate, we pretend, we fill the void with noise, with achievement, with distraction. But the void is still there. Because pain doesn't leave when you ignore it. It just burrows deeper, into the body, into the dreams, into the soul. To escape pain is to postpone truth. To face pain is to begin transformation. This is not romanticizing suffering. It is redeeming it. There is a soul beneath the pain. And that soul is not broken. It is becoming. It is trying to speak to you. It says, "Slow down. Sit with me. Don't turn away. There's something you need to see. There's something we need to feel. There's something only this wound can teach you. You will never fully understand your life if you amputate your pain from the story." Pain is part of the plot. And when you allow yourself to enter it, not with panic, but with courage, it begins to soften, to open, to reveal. You learn who you are when the mask drops. You discover your strength when there's nothing left to lean on. You meet your soul not at the top of your game, but at the bottom of your grief. And that meeting changes everything. So stop running. Stop pretending it's fine. Stop apologizing for feeling too deeply. Let yourself break. Honestly, safely, bravely. Let yourself question, scream, doubt, cry, pray. Because that's not regression. That's awakening. And what you will find, if you stay long enough in the dark, is that you are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are being initiated. And pain, when it is honored, becomes not a tomb, but a womb. Not a dead end, but a turning point. You do not need to be fixed. You need to be heard. And your soul, beneath the pain, is still alive, waiting. Chapter 7. Becoming a philosopher of your own life. No more borrowed beliefs, no more inherited scripts. It's time to think for yourself. radically, fiercely and deeply. You've spent your whole life absorbing answers. From parents, from schools, from pastors, from culture. What success looks like, what beauty is, what to fear, what to want, what to become. But here's the truth. Most of those answers were incomplete. Some were manipulative, others were lazy. A few were built on fear, guilt or conformity. Very few were forged in fire. Very few were earned. If you are reading this, something inside you is ready to break free from second-hand living. It is time to become a philosopher of your own life, not the academic kind, not the polished kind, the raw kind, the kind that rises from ashes and says, I want to know what is true, for me, for real, and for good. This does not mean rejecting everything you were taught. It means interrogating it, holding it to the light, keeping what's true, letting the rest burn. This is what it means to think, to stop floating, to stop inheriting, to stop pretending, to start choosing your thoughts the way a warrior chooses, a weapon, carefully, consciously, with honor. You do not have to live by scripts you didn't write. You do not have to chase dreams you never believed in. You do not have to speak in borrowed language or wear borrowed convictions. You are allowed to begin again. This is where the real work begins. Sit in silence, every day. 5 minutes. No phone. No music. Let the stillness speak. Ask yourself hard questions. What do I value? What do I believe? What do I want to be remembered for? Keep a journal, not for performance, but for soul excavation. Write down what hurts, what heals, what matters. Study the great minds, not to memorize, but to wrestle. Read Marcus Aurelius, Simone Weil, James Baldwin, Epictetus, Audre Lorde, Kierkegaard, bell hooks, Frankl, Rilke, Weil again. Doubt what you believe, doubt your doubts. Let nothing be automatic. Let nothing go unexamined. Learn to say, I don't know, and mean it. That's where wisdom starts. Becoming a philosopher of your life means you no longer outsource your mind. It means you think like your life depends on it, because it does. This kind of thinking is not passive. It is active resistance. In a world of propaganda, algorithms, manipulation, and mass distraction, clear thought is rebellion. The powers that be don't want you to think. They want you to obey, to consume, to react. Thinking is dangerous, because thinking people change things. Thinking people are harder to exploit, harder to depress, harder to control. So if you feel restless, good. If you feel like a misfit, better. That means your mind is alive. You were not born to be a cog. You were born to be a soul. And every soul must do the hard, holy work of becoming conscious. So light the fire. Start the journey. Don't wait for permission. No one is coming to save you from your own mind. Become the philosopher your life has been waiting for. Chapter 8. Building a philosophy that holds you. When the world is shaking, you don't need more information. You need an inner foundation that won't collapse. You were never meant to drift forever. You were meant to build not just a career, not just a relationship, not just a public image. You were meant to build a life code, a philosophy that could hold you when nothing else can, because storms will come, Loss will come. Failure, death, betrayal, doubt, loneliness, collapse. And when that happens, and it will, no degree, no title, no follower count will carry you through. Only one thing will, your inner architecture. Not what you claim to believe, but what you actually live by. The truths you carry in your blood. The principles you've tested in fire. The world-view that steadies your spine when everything else falls. If you don't build that, life will build it for you, and you may not like what it builds. It will build apathy, bitterness, cynicism, addiction. It will build habits that rot your dignity. It will build a hollow core that shakes with every gust of uncertainty. But you can build something else, a personal philosophy that holds you, not a borrowed religion, not a trendy ideology, not a crowdsourced set of opinions. Yours. What do you believe about life, about suffering, about love, death, beauty, justice, responsibility? What do you believe about your own worth? What code do you follow? When no one is watching, you don't need it to be perfect. You don't need it to be airtight. But you do need it to be true, true to what your soul knows in the dark. That kind of philosophy comes slowly, through reflection, writing, lived experience, heartbreak, joy, and failure. But it comes, and when it does, it becomes your anchor. When others fall to pieces, you remain. When confusion rages, you return to center. When despair whispers, you answer with clarity. This is not about building certainty. Life will never be certain. This is about building conviction. That quiet, calm strength that says, I may not know everything, but I know who I am. I know what I stand for. I know what I will not betray. That kind of soul doesn't crumble. That kind of soul stands. So how do you begin? Define your essentials. Write down your 5 unshakable values, not ideals, values. What matters no matter what? Create daily rituals. Morning silence. Writing. A moment of gratitude. Something to align your heart and mind. Know your non-negotiables. What will you not do, even if the world demands it? What do you refuse to sacrifice for success? Build your own metaphysics. What do you believe about the soul, God, the universe, death? You don't need all the answers, but you need a starting place. Live it. Out loud. Philosophy that is not embodied is useless. It must be lived into existence, day by day, choice by choice. This is what ancient wisdom has always taught. The good life is not found. It is built, brick by brick, thought by thought, act by act. So begin your building, slowly, honestly, fiercely, because one day, when the wind rises and the world shakes, you will be asked, what do you stand on? And you will answer, this. This life I built with truth. This soul I refused to abandon. This flame I kept alive. Chapter 9. Thought in the Age of Collapse. How to think clearly in a world that profits from your confusion and fears your awakening. We are not living in ordinary times. The structures around us are not just flawed, they are falling. Governments no longer govern, they posture and decay. Media no longer informs, it manipulates and divides. Economies no longer serve people, they consume them. Religions no longer awaken, they perform and protect power. We are watching the slow-motion collapse of the systems that were meant to hold us. And it's not just out there. You feel it in your gut. Something is wrong. Deeply, systemically, spiritually. The temptation in this moment is either to numb out or burn out, to pretend nothing's wrong, or to believe everything's lost, to escape into distractions or drown in doom. But there is another way, to think clearly, calmly, ruthlessly, to stand in the middle of the storm and say, I refuse to be manipulated. I refuse to be confused. I refuse to be fed lies by systems that fear my clarity. Because here is the truth they don't tell you. Collapse is fertile ground. It is not the end. It is the clearing. And in that clearing, new minds must rise. Not reactionaries, not nihilists, not hollow optimists, but thinkers, builders, soulful resistors who refuse to let the human spirit go extinct. You must become one of them, and to do that, you must train your mind like a weapon. Question everything, especially what comes from people with power, especially what comforts you too quickly. Get beneath the headlines. Ask, who profits from this narrative? What is being left out? Peel back the surface until you find the root. Don't chase the dopamine. Quick outrage is not wisdom. Performative sadness is not solidarity. Think slower. Seek first principles. What is true before spin, before culture, before fear? Begin there. Stay human. Do not let thought become cold detachment. Let your thinking lead to action, empathy, and grounded vision. Because this age wants your mind broken. A broken mind buys more, obeys more, clicks more, fears more. A clear mind, on the other hand, a clear mind disrupts. A clear mind builds. A clear mind remembers the power of human dignity. You are being told every day to shut up and scroll, to comply, to despair, to wait for someone else to think for you. But history is not changed by the compliant. It is changed by those who refuse to hand over their minds. Don't wait for the collapse to finish. Don't wait for a savior. Don't wait for permission. Begin now. Think clearly, especially when clarity is rare. Speak truth, especially when it's costly. Feel deeply, especially when it hurts. Because your mind, awake and alive, is the revolution.